My parents told me that Grandma was in the hospital, convincing me to skip the family cruise. She needs you, they urged. I believed them. Then my sister uploaded photos of everyone aboard. Best vacation ever, she wrote. When they returned, my mother called. Please, honey. Grandma really needs you now. She's not feeling well at all. Her voice trembled, laden with what I now recognize as feigned concern. I sat alone in my Indianapolis apartment, surrounded by the suitcase I had packed for our long-awaited family trip. My initial excitement evaporated, replaced by anxiety. Of course, I'll stay, I replied without hesitation. The cruise isn't important if Grandma needs me. Those words would soon haunt me. My name is Tara Smith, and I'm 28 years old. My whole life, I've strived to be the responsible daughter, the one my family could depend on in difficult times. But this loyalty was about to be tested in unimaginable ways. For months, I had eagerly anticipated this cruise, our first real family trip in years. My parents, my younger sister Emma, and other relatives would all be there. I had taken time off work, even bought new summer outfits. But when Mom called about Grandma's hospitalization, I didn't think twice before canceling. That evening, as I drove toward the hospital, my phone buzzed. A notification from Emma. My heart dropped as I opened it. A photo of my entire family aboard the cruise ship, champagne glasses raised. Best vacation ever. So blessed to have such an amazing family. The caption read, Cruise life, family time. I pulled over, my hands trembling. There they were, Mom, Dad, Emma, my aunts and uncles, all grinning on the deck. They had deceived me. They had intentionally left me behind, using my love for Grandma as bait. When I arrived at the hospital, there was no record of her being admitted. My calls to my parents went unanswered. Emma had blocked me within minutes of my seeing her post. The betrayal was suffocating. My vision blurred with tears as I drove to Grandma's house. To my surprise, the lights were on. When I knocked, she opened the door, looking perfectly fine, and utterly confused by my distress. Tara. What's wrong, sweetheart? She asked, pulling me into a warm hug. The familiar scent of her lavender perfume triggered fresh tears. As we sat in her cozy living room, the truth unraveled, the lies. The cruise, the social media post that shattered my world. I don't understand, I whispered, wiping my eyes. Why would they do this to me? Why lie about you being sick? Grandma's expression darkened. She had always treated Emma and me equally, but our parents had not. Growing up in Indianapolis, I had watched them favor my sister time and time again. When Emma wanted dance lessons, they found the money. When I needed help with tuition, I had to take out loans. I thought about all the times I had visited Grandma, helping her with groceries, taking her to appointments, reminiscing over old photo albums. Emma rarely came unless she wanted something, usually money. Yet, in our parents' eyes, she remained the golden child. Your mother called me last week, Grandma revealed, her voice tight with anger. She asked me to play along if you came by, to pretend I had been in the hospital. I refused, of course. I never imagined they'd go through with it. The cruise had cost nearly $2,000 per person, a week-long Caribbean escape. I had worked extra shifts at my accounting job just to afford my ticket. Now, I couldn't shake the suspicion that they had planned my exclusion from the start, perhaps even using my money to fund someone else's spot. You know what hurts the most? I murmured, staring at my hands. They didn't even need to make up a story. They could have just told me they didn't want me there. But instead, they used you, knowing how much I love you, to manipulate me. Grandma took my hand, her grip firm. Sometimes, people reveal exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it, she said gently. The real question is, what will you do with that knowledge? I looked up, finding an unexpected resolve in her eyes. I had no idea that Grandma had been silently observing our family dynamics all along, and that she had plans of her own. As we sat there, my phone buzzed again. A group text from my cousin Nina. She had unknowingly sent vacation pictures to the entire family chat, unaware that I wasn't supposed to see them. My stomach sank as I scrolled. There was Emma, wearing the sundress I had helped her pick for the trip. My parents, lounging by the pool with cocktails. The entire family gathered for a formal dinner, laughing together. But one detail made my breath hitch: my mother's diamond necklace. The one Grandma had gifted her years ago, meant to be passed down to both daughters on their 30th birthdays. She already gave it to Emma, didn't she? I asked, showing Grandma the photo. Even though I'm the eldest. Even though it was meant to be shared between us. Grandma leaned in to examine the picture, her expression growing stern. That necklace has been in our family for 3 generations, she murmured. Your great-grandmother divided her jewelry equally between her daughters, which is why I entrusted it to your mother with clear instructions. Then, Grandma revealed something that sent a chill down my spine. My parents hadn't paid for the cruise at all. 2 months ago, she had given them $15,000 specifically to plan a family vacation, one that included all of us. Instead, they had used my share to upgrade their own cabins and book additional excursions. I've been watching, Grandma went on, her voice filled with disappointment. For years, I hoped they would change, that they'd recognize what they were doing. But this was the final straw. She stood and walked over to her desk, pulling out a thick manila envelope. I wasn't going to show you this yet, but you need to see it, she said. I've kept records, every time they favored Emma. Every instance where they took advantage of your kindness. Every dollar they spent unequally between you two. Inside the envelope were bank statements, photographs, emails, and handwritten notes spanning years. My hands trembled as I sifted through them. The truth was laid bare in black and white. The favoritism wasn't just in my imagination. It had been intentional, systematic, and deliberate. But why? I whispered, feeling the weight of years of gaslighting and denial crashing down on me. Why did they make me believe I was imagining it? Grandma's eyes flashed with a fierce determination I hadn't seen before. Because that's what people do when they know they're wrong. They try to make you question yourself. Her voice softened. But not anymore, Tara. Not anymore. The cruise was set to last 7 days. The next morning, as I sat in my Indianapolis apartment sorting through Grandma's documents, my phone lit up with a text from Emma. Mom says you're spreading lies about us. Why can't you ever just be happy instead of ruining everything? I stared at the message, anger rising in my chest. Even after everything, they were still trying to paint me as the villain. Instead of replying, I did something I'd never dared to do before. I posted the truth on social media. Funny how lying about Grandma being hospitalized just to exclude me from a vacation somehow makes me the problem, I wrote, attaching Emma's best vacation ever photo. Even funnier how the trip was paid for with money that was supposed to include me. Within minutes, my post blew up with reactions. Family friends who had known us for years expressed their shock. Cousins who hadn't realized the full extent of the situation messaged me privately, sharing their own observations of how I'd always been treated differently. Then my father called. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Grandma's words echoed in my mind. Stand your ground. You've done nothing wrong. I answered. Take that post down immediately, he demanded, his voice cold. You're embarrassing this family. No, Dad, I said evenly. You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick. When you took her money meant for all of us, and used it to cut me out. That's not what happened, he snapped. We just needed a break from my constant what, Dad? I interrupted. My constant reliability. My constant help with Grandma. My constant effort to be part of a family that treats me like an outsider. Silence. Then his tone shifted. Low. Threatening. If you don't take that post down and publicly apologize for your lies, you'll regret it, he warned. You have no idea what's at stake here. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, he shot back. Your mother and I have protected you all these years. Kept certain things from you. If you want to start this fight, fine. But remember, you're not the only one who can tell stories. The call ended. My stomach twisted. What had they protected me from? What stories could they tell? I called Grandma immediately. They're trying to scare me, I told her. Dad said they've been protecting me from something, but he wouldn't say what. Grandma was silent for a long moment. Then she said, go check your email. I'm sending you something. It's time you knew everything." My hands trembled as I opened my laptop. I had no idea what I was about to find, but judging by Grandma's tone, my parents had good reason to fear what I was about to uncover. A moment later, an email arrived. Inside was a scanned document dated 25 years ago, a trust agreement that made my breath hitch in my throat. My maternal grandfather had left behind a substantial fortune before he passed, meant to be divided equally among his grandchildren when they turned 30. The trust was worth over $2 million. But that wasn't all. Attached were years' worth of bank statements. They showed a pattern of withdrawals, money siphoned from the trust over time. Money that had paid for Emma's dance lessons, her private school tuition, her college education, even her wedding. All of it had come from my share. "They've been taking from you since you were 3, Grandma said over the phone, her voice steady. "Your mother convinced the trustee, her brother Michael, to grant her early access to your share, insisting it was for your benefit. But in reality, they spent every penny on Emma," I finished, my voice devoid of emotion. The figures were staggering. Over $500,000 had been drained from my trust fund throughout the years, while I had struggled through multiple jobs just to afford college. At that moment, another email arrived. This time, it was from Uncle Michael. "Tara, I can't stay silent anymore. What they did with the cruise money was the final straw. I've attached records of every withdrawal they made from your trust. I'm deeply sorry, I should have stopped them long ago." Attached were files that revealed an even more unsettling truth. My parents hadn't just depleted my trust fund for Emma, they had been siphoning off money for themselves as well. The cruise was just the most recent example of their ongoing deceit. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked Grandma, struggling to grasp the scale of the betrayal. "I only uncovered the full extent of it recently," she admitted. "When I confronted your mother last month, she swore they'd return every dollar. That's why I gave them the cruise money. It was a test, Tara. And they failed spectacularly," I said bitterly. "Exactly. But their failure has given us exactly what we needed, proof," she continued. "Your Uncle Michael has agreed to testify about their mishandling of the trust. Alongside your documentation and the cruise incident, we have enough to take legal action," I concluded, my shock giving way to resolve. "Not just legal action," Grandma said, her voice resolute. "We can ensure they never harm you again." Open the second attachment in my email. I clicked on it and gasped. It was Grandma's recently updated will. She had named me as the sole heir to her estate, which included the controlling shares in the family business, the very company where my father served as CEO. "They're about to learn," Grandma said firmly, "that actions have consequences." The following morning, I met Uncle Michael at a cafe in downtown Indianapolis. His weary eyes and trembling hands suggested he hadn't slept much. As he handed me a thick folder, his expression was grim. "These are copies of every document, every transaction," he said quietly. "I've already sent everything to the family attorney. Your parents, they're going to fight this, Tara. They've called me 6 times since I sent that email." "What are they saying?" I asked, flipping through the overwhelming evidence of years of financial exploitation. "They're insisting it was all for your own good, that they were protecting you from having too much money at a young age," he said, shaking his head in disgust. "But I found something else, something they don't know I know about." He slid another document across the table. It showed a series of recent transfers to an offshore account. "They're planning to disappear, Tara. They've been moving money around, preparing for something." The realization hit me like a punch. The cruise wasn't just a trip, it was a trial run, he continued. They were testing whether their passports would trigger any red flags. A chill ran down my spine. "They're planning to flee. With what's left of your trust fund, yes. And Emma is involved, she's been helping them set up accounts in her name to conceal the money." Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Emma. "I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to ruin everything. Well, guess what? You're too late. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone, and you'll have nothing." I showed the message to Uncle Michael, watching the color drain from his face. "They're moving faster than I thought," he muttered. "We need to act immediately." Without hesitation, I called Grandma. She answered on the first ring, as if she had been waiting. "There. At the company right now," she said without preamble. "Your father is emptying his office. Security just alerted me. Can they stop him?" "Better," she replied. "I've already contacted the police and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They're on their way." She hesitated before adding, "But, Tara, you need to get down there. You're the majority shareholder now." I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "They don't know that yet, do they?" "No," she confirmed. "And that's our advantage. Get there before they have a chance to destroy any evidence. Uncle Michael's records prove the theft, but there may be more we don't yet know about." As I rushed toward my car, another text came through. This time, from my mother. "You ungrateful child. After all we've done for you, you'll regret this." But for the first time, their threats didn't scare me. The truth was on my side, and more importantly, I had nothing left to lose. I reached the headquarters of the family company just as my parents were exiting, carrying boxes from my father's office. Emma trailed behind them, her eyes darting around anxiously. They halted the moment they spotted me stepping out of my car. "What are you doing here?" my father demanded, attempting to maintain the commanding tone of a CEO, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. I let out a dry laugh. "That's exactly what I was going to ask you." I kept my voice steady. "Especially since you're taking property from my company without permission." Emma scoffed. "Your company? What are you even talking about?" Raising my phone, I showed them the ownership records. Grandma transferred her controlling shares to me this morning. And as the new majority shareholder, I'm particularly curious about those boxes you're carrying. Do they, by any chance, contain proof of how you drained my trust fund? My mother's face went pale. Behind them, police cars rolled into the lot, their lights flashing. Unmarked vehicles arrived, and FBI agents stepped out. From the corner of my eye, I saw Uncle Michael's car pull up, with Grandma in the passenger seat. "You don't understand," my mother pleaded, her voice trembling. "Everything we did was for this family." "No," I corrected her, my tone unwavering. "Everything you did was for Emma." I turned to my sister. "Tell me, Emma, was the cruise worth it?" Tears welled in her eyes as the FBI agents closed in. My father attempted to pull her away, but there was nowhere left to run. The truth had finally caught up with them. 3 months later, I sat in Grandma's garden in Indianapolis, sipping coffee as golden autumn leaves drifted down. The FBI's investigation had uncovered even more than we'd imagined. My parents hadn't just stolen from my trust, they had also embezzled company funds. Now, they were facing federal charges along with civil lawsuits from shareholders. Emma had taken a deal, agreeing to testify in exchange for immunity. She had since relocated to Minnesota, forced to support herself without our parents' money. Her last message to me had been an emotional apology, but some wounds run too deep for mere words to mend. Grandma took a sip of her coffee and smiled. "You know, your grandfather would be proud of how you handled this. He always believed that money reveals a person's true character." I nodded, reflecting on the changes I had made at the company. Under my leadership, we had established a scholarship fund for employees' children and introduced a more transparent financial system. The business was flourishing, this time, built on honesty rather than deception. I never wanted any of this, I admitted. I just wanted to be treated fairly. Grandma reached over and gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. Sometimes, life's greatest blessings come wrapped in its biggest hardships. You turned their betrayal into something meaningful. She was right. In their greed, they had lost everything, but I had gained something far greater: strength, purpose, and a sense of self-worth. That extravagant cruise they had taken without me. It hadn't been the trip of a lifetime. It had been the beginning of their downfall, and the start of my new life.